Hello and welcome to episode 414 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is AmyJo Doh, or AmyJo Doherty. Yes, the sister from Pete Doherty, who has been on Mark and Me, is joining me today to talk all about her brand new album and so much more. Hopefully you've heard AmyJo Doh and the Spangles, and if you haven't, well, the good news is, as we're sitting here right now, the album is out there. Go and buy it on vinyl, go and have a listen or stream it, support AmyJo, and the good news is she's playing some UK shows in only just over a week's time. There's places like the Lexington, Margate, St Albans. Go and check it out, go and see her live and give this girl some support. Today's interview is really open, really honest and really down to earth, and I absolutely love Amy. She's such a great guest, and the interview will be coming up in just a couple of minutes time. But as always, I always use the intro for every episode of Mark and Me to quickly touch base and talk about my last episode. On episode 413, I was joined by Chuck Reagan. Yes, the guy from Hot Water Music. What an amazing chat, what a great interview, and thanks so much to everyone that listened, and a huge thanks to Chuck and Hot Water Music for sharing the episode, because it went absolutely huge with numbers and was a great way to start 2025. Now today's interview with AmyJo is so good, I really can't wait to share it with you, so I think the best thing to do is to get straight to it. So here's me and AmyJo talking all things music. So Amy, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
Hi, nice to be here.
It's absolutely lovely to welcome you today. And Amy, what I do with all guests that come on, it doesn't really matter what walk of life you've been on. I always like to go back to the very start, and I'm really interested in those first albums that maybe you were given or you bought with your own pocket money. But as a kid, can you take yourself back down memory lane and remember that first album maybe that you fell in love with, or that first album that you remember being played in the house that just made you fall in love with music?
Wow, that's a very good question. I seem to remember that there was always music being played. My mum was really into Motown and she had a great record collection. And my dad was more into rock and roll. He loved the Kinks and the Beatles, obviously. And I remember, I remember I did have a record player in my room, and I think I probably borrowed my mum and dad's records. But I remember at one point, I must have been about 7 or 8, and my dad made me on a cassette an album, and on one side it was Wham, the album with Club Tropicana in, I can't remember the name, and on the other side was Madonna.
Wow.
And I just used to listen to it on repeat. Yeah, I think that was maybe the first album I owned. The first one that I bought, a bit embarrassingly, was well, not embarrassingly, was Mariah Carey Music Box, I think it was called. It had Dr. Beat on it.
What I love about your honesty here is a lot of people come on and they'll never be completely true, and they try, I bought Metallica or I bought Nirvana, but I like that you're being honest, because one of my first albums was Jive Bunny. That's what they bought me, my
Oh, the
parents.
Master Mixers.
Yes.
Oh, we
And
had that single as well on CD. Oh, brilliant.
so I feel like when I tell people, I have to try and be a bit cooler and be like, oh, it was Nirvana and Pearl Jam, but really it was Jive Bunny.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. I think as well, it probably had to do with what was on sale in the record, because I didn't have much pocket
Yeah.
money. The first CD I bought is even more embarrassing because I don't even really like, oh, that's a terrible thing to say. But it was Bryan Adams, Summer of '69. I think
Oh,
that was
wow.
Organ Basement. Like, oh God, I actually hate that
I remember
country
when he
American
brought
rock.
out Everything I Do, and it was at number one for about 8 years or something
Oh,
stupid.
terrible. I think that's what put me off him. Like, come on. Worse than
Oh,
Wet, Wet, Wet.
God.
Love is all around.
Bloody hell. I just remember those days of Top of the Pops, and I actually really cared about the charts back then. It was quite a cool thing to do and listen to the radio and think, oh, who's at number one? And there's all these
Oh,
great
yeah.
bands, really
We
nostalgic.
used to record the top 40 show.
It was a nightmare, wasn't it? Hitting that pause button to make sure the adverts were cut out.
Totally. Yeah. And
That's
do you
an
remember?
art, that is. That's an art. If you can
It
master
really
that,
is.
you're sorted for life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, me and Peter actually used to make our own radio shows from that
Oh,
because we
wow.
had those ghetto blasters, that was a name, that had the double thing. So we could use the top 40 from the Sunday. We used to get it on a Sunday night. We
Yeah.
lived in Cyprus, so it might have been different. Or maybe it was the same. I don't know.
I think it
Probably
was
was
around
Sunday.
tea time. I think it was like, I don't know why. I've got this Sunday 4 o'clock. I don't know why that's in my head.
Yeah,
So
it
that
was
might be a
something
bit.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, happy days. And I used to buy smash hits as well. And the
Yeah.
word, you'd get the words. And I remember like really learning the words to the songs. And then obviously all through the week before the next Sunday, you could stop, rewind. I think I even used to write them out, the ones that weren't in smash hits. It's so fun.
Amazing. So that's a lost art, and I think people don't appreciate. And I'm not trying to sound like a granddad already, 5 minutes
Yeah.
into the podcast, but it was nice when a lot of thought and love went into these because you'd buy a CD, it would fold out to like 8 or 9 pages. It would be all the handwritten lyrics from the artists or really good behind the scenes studio pictures. And it really
Yeah.
gave you an insight to the band. And I love streaming. I love the fact that I can have all the songs I want in my pocket. But that smell of opening up a CD, that paper, that kind of saving up
Mm,
your money and buying an album and making sure you love it because you obviously spent, 12 or 13 pound at our price or Woolworths or somewhere for a CD. You had
yeah.
to love it because that was the only one you were buying for a few weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And yeah, that like the posters that used to come in and the flyers for other albums.
Yeah.
Especially vinyl, you just can't beat it for
No, it's absolutely. I do like the fact that it's had a resurgence now, and people are putting a lot more thought and effort into the artwork and these beautiful
yeah.
looking vinyls again. It is nice, but there was such a long period of just everyone only streaming, and I was thinking, oh, I'm getting lazy. I'm not even getting my CDs out anymore, and I feel like I've neglected them. But there's something really magical, isn't there, about having the lyrics in your hand while you're listening to music?
Absolutely. Yeah, following that because quite often, we don't take the time, like you say, to sit down and listen. And quite often we don't really fully appreciate the lyrics.
No, it's
Because I live in Spain, I've got a lot of friends who are real fanatical about music, and a lot of it, and it really, I don't know, it really makes me admire them that they sit down and they translate the lyrics
oh wow.
because it means so much to them. Yeah. And I mean, I've got several musician friends and they've never been to England. Their English is fantastic. And a lot of them say the same thing. It's all thanks to listening to the Beatles when they were kids. And they sat down meticulously, translate, because this the days before internet as well. Sat down, translated it. It's so beautiful. I think, oh, good for you.
It's awesome. So,
Mm.
what about live music then? Because I'm 42 now, so one of my first gigs was in Wolverhampton at a Wolfram Hall. It was Green Day. I tell this on every podcast. The listeners must be like, "Yeah, we know by now." But it was that experience that made me want to pick up a guitar and write music. And the only thing I ever saw myself doing for the rest of my life was trying to be like that band or a performer on stage. And I wondered, you've been very honest today and told me about that first record that you're not very proud of. But what about your first live music experience? Can you remember those first concerts you went to?
Yeah, I can. And actually, I spoke about this in an interview last week and then said to actually my drummer, because he watched the interview and he said, "Oh my God, I saw that tour as well." Because then I was thinking, did I actually make that up? But I didn't. And I was so glad when he sent me that WhatsApp. I was like, thank God for you. I think it was, I wasn't at university, but I think it was in a student union and I was 15 or 16. And we went along, a group of us. It must have been really early as well because I wasn't allowed out late. And it was Echo Belly, Elastica, and I think Skunk and Anansie, although he
Oh,
said a different
wow.
band. But oh my God, honestly. And it's the first time that I actually felt the music through my feet. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's one of those wooden old student union bars. The stage was only like one step higher than us. And I remember actually that feeling. I've got a terrible memory. I don't remember a lot, but I remember that feeling of actually feeling the music in my body coming up through the floorboards.
No, I
Uh,
talk about it. I talk about, I sound like a broken record player, but I feel the music in my rib cage, the
Mm,
hairs on my neck stick up. I feel it
wow.
through my body, and when the sound's done correctly and the music has a good PA system or something, or even if it doesn't, and you're in a good venue and it shakes, you can actually feel this other level of power of music. And I remember student unions, and some of them might have had sticky floors and been
Oh,
really
always. Yeah.
awful, but it didn't matter because you were there just to have a great night. And
Yeah.
it's just it's I sound like an old man, but you go out with 20 quid, get drunk, get a kebab, and see a
Yeah.
band and still
And
have
see a
change.
band. It's like a fiver or something. Yeah. I'm always complaining about that here that, but maybe I remember things romantically because maybe that never happened. But I had the feeling that it used to be about the venue, like
Yeah,
the owner of the pub was into his, for example, indie. So you always knew that he was going to bring local indie artists, or maybe another place was more grunge. But you knew that if, right, you pay your fiver on a Friday night at this place, you're going to be surprised by some good new bands. And now I get the feeling, and I know as on the circuit here in Madrid, and I think it's the same in the UK as well, that they don't really care what the music is as long as you bring friends with you
it
who are
is.
going to
It's all
pay
about
for
the
drinks.
sales. Yeah,
It's all about that nowadays. It could be, one day you could be listening to um, a reggae band, and then it could be somebody just with some backing tracks.
and then a bloody
Uh, uh,
tribute band.
the quality doesn't even, and then a tribute band, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
and yeah, and now actually what a lot of people have explained to me, because a lot of my band musicians are also DJs, and they make all their money DJing. To be honest, it's
yeah,
like they kick the band out, they kick all your friends out who've come to see you, and then they make their money by charging, 15 quid to get in to see a DJ. People are spending money on what they call here coppers, like gin tonics, vodka tonics,
yeah.
and that's how these venues are staying alive. Live music isn't big money for the bar owners now.
No, it's a shame, but it's the times we're in, and I wondered. At what point, even though you'd seen some great first live music and you'd been to these student unions and seen, Elastica and Skunk Anansie, really good female-fronted bands, I wondered when it was that you started to put pen to paper or to pick up an instrument or to feel like I want to do this. I want to go at this. This is something that I would like to kind of.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say they were all female. It didn't even occur to me actually. That's really interesting.
Yeah, Skunk Anansie. My God, I miss that band every day.
Oh, she's amazing.
Unbelievable.
But I've always written poetry, and I've always just loved writing and making up rhymes, but I never ever thought that I'd play my poems, because at first the song started out just as poems and I'd strum a few chords along.
Yeah,
Um, if someone had said to me, "You're going to be playing these live," I would never have dreamt that that would have been one, something I wanted to do, or something that I was capable of, because I was actually very shy and very self-conscious about my music. And now it's like, in a way, it's not, I couldn't even say a dream come true, because it's something I didn't even dream. It's just
no.
something that has kind of happened, naturally, really.
So how did you find the confidence if I don't know you well, I've only just met you today, but surely it's not easy to perform in front of people, especially something as personal as poetry and lyrics that mean so much to you that I'm sure is about life and experiences and things
Yeah.
and highs and lows. What's it feel like to kind of broadcast? It's like a diary, isn't it, for the world to listen to?
It's really interesting. And I do write a mix of songs. I write a lot of songs in Spanish,
Yeah,
Spanglish, and a lot of them are just funny, like stories and mixing up the languages. And, I get a lot of laughs. But it's interesting because my more personal songs, I still find it a bit more. It's like you're being totally naked. It's a bit like what you've just said. You're opening up your diary, and they tend to be slower. It tends to be not so much. I've got one called Musée de Hamon, and I get everyone shouting with me. But when you're singing the slower, more not sadder songs, but deeper,
yeah,
I still find it um, like, whoa, okay. And people, it's funny because a lot of people now ask for those songs. They're like, we like that side of you. It doesn't always have to be rah, 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 you know.
Do you feel like you've got a canvas that's completely blank whenever you want, and you don't have to be a certain sound? You can write about anything, and if the music is the perfect partnership for those lyrics or those words you've written, it doesn't matter. It can be heavy, it can be rah rah rah, like you said, it can be soft,
Yeah,
it can be acoustic. Do you feel like no one's telling you what to do? You're not in this like kind of bubble. You can break out and do whatever you want whenever you want.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of being, in the underground.
Yeah, no, it's
You know,
good. It's
yeah.
refreshing to hear.
And people have said to me, like, especially when you're filling out forms to try and get into festivals, or when I'm, registering for things, it's like they always want to know about the genre. And I just think, well, every song is a different genre.
Yeah,
You know, people want it. In fact, I've got a song about it in Spanish called Etiquetas, which is basically labels. It's like people want to be able to define you and put you into boxes. And I don't know, the kind of the conspiracy theory is it's their way to control it. But I think people find it easier to understand you if you're like, oh, she's this. I say punky poetry, and because also here the word is canto autor, singer-songwriter. And that just sounds so dull to me. I hate, oh, I'm a singer-songwriter. It just, to me, it sounds really boring. And like, I always say to people, well, some songs are, could be considered quite scarish or quite
yeah.
punky. I've got some lullabies. I've got some, come along and listen and tell me what you think.
Have you ever felt, I'm not sure if you get this question a lot, but do you ever feel pressure, obviously, with the name of Doherty and people knowing who your brothers? Do you ever feel like you've got to prove a point, or have you been able to kind of let that go and digest it and just be like, I want to be my own person. I want to kind of, has there ever been a point where you thought, maybe I don't use the name or I do something different, or just because people are just small-minded and just be like, "Do you sound like your brother? What's your favorite Libertines album?" Do you just wish you could break
Hmm.
away and be yourself sometimes?
It's interesting that question, because when I first started, I didn't. I was very paranoid about that, and that's why
Yeah,
I used the name AmyJo Doh.
yeah.
And in them days, it was MySpace. MySpace.
God, MySpace.
Remember
Wow.
that?
Bring back
Uh,
MySpace.
Yeah, they approached me and wanted to, and now I really wish that I'd said yes, but I just wanted to be like, yeah, because I did feel that pressure, and um, I was very aware that I was different, but you worry about people thinking that you're trying to be like Peter. I remember once I was in LA with some friends just on a holiday. I wasn't even singing my songs in public then, and I was wearing this hat that I love. This hat. It was a bit like a pork pie hat. And I remember being in this bar and someone came up to me and said, "You trying to look like Pete Doherty?" And
Fucking hell.
it was like a smack in the face. And I never wore that hat again.
Did you burst his bubble and say, well, actually, if anyone's going to look like him, I'm allowed to. I'm his sister.
Well, later on, we were all, in the same bar, and my friend went over and said, "Oh, that's his sister." And I think he did buy me a couple of drinks to apologize,
Well,
because we
there you
do look
go.
quite alike. And I think I was wearing this hat and I did probably look like him, but I'm the eldest. I always say, no, he looks like me.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So when you go and do these shows, obviously in Spain, and then when you get a chance to come to the UK and do as much as you can, do you get really nervous before you go on stage? Do you feel the anxiety of trying to sometimes win over a crowd? Obviously, people come and buy tickets and want to see you, but being a
Mm,
performer and a musician, especially on the indie scene, any show you do is a good chance to showcase your music, but also it's a great opportunity to try and win new fans, isn't it? It's to kind of hopefully someone's come for a
absolutely.
drink that night and they leave thinking, oh, I'm going to buy that album or I'm going to check them
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Or listen to us on Spotify,
Yes,
and
buy
that's
an
why I
album.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I think, even like last night I did a gig in a tiny little bar. Um, and every heart that you can reach, it's quite easy, I think, especially these days with all the social media, to suddenly start measuring ourselves with numbers and likes, and it's in a way we measure success by that, and you can't help it. It's a very ego driven world that we live in now. Well, I think
I think it's really toxic.
it's toxic. We have to be careful, don't we?
I really struggle with it now. I used to be obsessed, and if I looked at an episode, why has it only got this many likes? And then the next day, but that person's got more likes and this should be doing better. And
Yeah,
I genuinely think it might have made me go a bit crazy at some points, especially during lockdown because I had so much time on my hands. I'd be
yeah.
like, oh, I've not got enough followers. And if a record label looks at my profile, they might not think I'm good enough. And I'm like, oh God, why am I worrying? People pay for followers. They're not even legit anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. But record companies and festivals, they do take it all into account, sadly. And
It
in a
is,
way,
yeah.
it does matter. But I think as an artist, it's very important that it's actually really good therapy, all this kind of self-awareness and battling with it and saying, okay, let's stop now. That's enough for today.
Yeah, that's good.
That going back to the gig question, I think what I'm trying to really concentrate on is the level of success is even if you can reach one heart and one song that touches someone else's heart and they
Yeah.
helps them in their journey or makes them think I can do that or makes them think, oh, I feel like that too. I don't know. I feel that our job as an artist is to change hearts and change minds. And, you know, I've really come to terms with the fact that, I'm not, perhaps it's not my destiny in this life to be, a multi-million seller. But if one person, and people do say, oh, I love that song, that is like, wow, that's success. But then we forget about it the next day, don't we? We're like, oh, why?
Exactly.
We
You're in
need to
my head
remember
big
those.
time. Yeah, it's
You do
someone
it and
can
then
tell
let
you
it
they
go.
loved an interview or they loved a song and the next day it's so forgotten because you're just back into the mindset of comparing yourself to the whole world.
Yeah. Whereas a negative comment, we carry that with us
Oh my
around for
God.
years, don't we?
Yeah, they cripple me. Either those troll comments where someone's like, I hated that. You're like, ah, that's just wiped
Apparently,
out 100 nice comments.
yeah. Apparently, until you get, that you've made it when you get haters. So take it as
Oh
a,
yeah, bring them all on then I can at least tell my parents I've done well.
yeah.
So you're talking about playing shows. You do get nervous, I take it. You do,
Always.
obviously
Yeah.
enjoy the experience. You enjoy the fact of hopefully touching someone's heart with your music. But how do you hide the nerves? How do you go on stage and kind of wear a mask if you're not feeling it, or if you're just struggling? Do you find it really difficult, or are you able to kind of grin and bear it and let the music then hopefully be enough to soothe your soul and provide like that extra confidence that's needed?
It's a very good question. I've started to think that it's a bit like the extreme sports. It's that adrenaline and
Yeah,
someone really famous said to me, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Carl actually, but I remember being on at the state and I was so surprised that they were nervous. And then they said to me, listen, when you stop feeling these nerves, then it's time to pack it in.
yeah,
It's
that's a hell
that's
of a
why we
good
do
point.
it. It's that buzz. And being sober and getting on stage is even something woo enormous because
Yeah.
it's easier to hide behind things, but it's such a buzz, it's such a yourself. It's very, very addictive, that
It
sensation,
is. It
whether
is.
they're throwing stuff or they adore you or not, just you physically walking on the stage and like, okay, I'm here, listen to me,
It's a
but you have
very
to let it
powerful
go.
thing, isn't it? It can become addictive, and I think it's a good addiction because it shouldn't hopefully kill you or make you poorly, but you're
It
always
shouldn't.
striving for it, aren't you? You get
Yeah.
it, and then it's a taster. And if I've done 2,000 trees this year with Frank Turner, and there's I think it's about 4 or 5 thousand people. I walked on stage with him and looked out, and it was just like there's nothing in the world that makes me feel like this. Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
pure ecstasy. It was insane. And I just thought, I want it again. I just need it.
yeah,
It's, you know,
yeah. And do you always get that feeling as well? Like sometimes right before I think, oh shit, why am I doing this? Oh no, why? You know,
and it's too
please
late, isn't it?
beam me up, Scotty. You get that dread, don't you? Like sickness. And then,
I think we might
ooh,
put ourselves in those positions
yeah,
and we need that. Otherwise, it's not a reality check. So maybe you're saying, Carl, saying the time you stop, getting nervous is when you probably shouldn't be doing it anymore. And that question of why am I doing this?
yeah.
There's thousands of
What
people
the
here.
hell?
Everyone's
Yeah,
having a drink, enjoying other people's music. Why am I putting
yeah.
myself in a position that's so vulnerable that if I say the wrong word, everyone can see it, can be filmed. Everyone's got cameras now.
Especially
What am I
nowadays.
doing?
Yeah,
But for
yeah.
some reason, I'm like, fucking hell, let's do it every day.
I want to do it again. Yeah. We must be nuts.
Yeah, I know it's insane, and someone will watch this one day and be like, "Yep, those two are crazy," but we will
Of
carry on doing it. And I think, in
course we
five, ten
will. That's what
years,
we
we'll
were
still
born
be
to
here.
do.
Yeah, exactly. So how long will it be until we get to see you again over here? Obviously, you're in Spain. I'm sure the weather's a lot nicer than we are over here, but will it be long
Yeah.
until we get to see you play some shows and songs over here soon?
We're hoping to come over at the end of January. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
So yeah, we're really excited. We're just in the process of putting a few dates together. So I'll let you know if we're in the where do you live? Which part of the
I'm in
UK?
Shropshire, so I'm bang in the middle, so I can get to Manchester, I can get to Birmingham, Wolverhampton. Nothing's too far.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, well, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come and say hello and we'll have a drink and
Brilliant.
see why we're
Yeah.
so insane and do this every week.
I'll drag you on stage. You can say something.
Oh my God, yeah. And what's left then? Obviously, you've got new music out, which is exciting. The album cover is absolutely beautiful. One of my favorites. I was looking at it on Instagram and zooming in and looking at all the detail because it's just, you see something different every time.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen it physically. They're stuck in transit. I don't know where they are. Thanks to
Right.
Brexit, the post between here and the UK is a lot worse. But yeah, I just started adding and adding and adding, and it's I can't wait to see it because obviously I did it all on the computer, so I haven't really seen it
In the
properly.
actual flesh.
Yeah, and my computer screen is smaller than the actual thing, so even while I was doing it, I had to kind of keep rolling around.
I'm excited for you when that vinyl comes through the post and you can be like,
And it's
ah, look at
red. It's
this.
red vinyl.
Oh, very posh.
Ah!
So a tour next year, some UK dates would be great. New
Yeah.
music's out there for the world to listen to. You said to me on this interview, and I did take a little mental note, is that you never had any expectations. You never thought you'd even put more than just a few words to a few strums of a guitar or something. You didn't realize that that was going to happen. So
No.
now that is happening, now that we're sat here and you have put a lot more than just a few strums to your words and you've got music out there and you've got a band playing with you, do you have any kind of goals or milestones that you want to achieve? Is there something you want to set out and do and play certain venues or hit certain numbers which we shouldn't? But is there still stuff that you want to tick off, or are you just happy that you're riding the wave that you never even saw coming?
I mean, that's a beautiful way to put it, isn't it? But I think, the ego and the mind starts thinking, I would love to go to Mexico. It's always been my
Oh
dream.
wow, that'd be awesome.
I'd love to just tour, and just play. I mean, I know touring is very hard, but I'd love to travel and play. That's always been a bit of a dream of mine. Um, and I'd love that suddenly the world wants the Spangles in their festivals. We've spent years writing to all the festivals every year, being ignored, being ignored. So I'd love suddenly for them to say, we want you and to write to us. Um, but again, I'm very aware. I think it's very helpful. A bit like you, I don't want to start sounding like an old woman, but it's very helpful that these things happen when you're a bit older, like in your 40s. Something
Yeah,
changes, doesn't it? Um,
massively. I think
Changes or you die, I think.
I
You have
think
to do a work on yourself to get to this
yeah,
stage.
without getting too deep, like your 20s, your 30s, nothing really feels like it matters. Everything just feels like one big kind of, I don't know, not a party, just a journey. But then whatever happened when I hit 40, I don't know, all the big things didn't matter anymore. All the little things started to matter, and my
Exactly.
my
Yeah,
kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's even just the age of 40. I think it's just this stage in my life. But all the little
exactly.
things really mattered. All the family stuff, it was more important. The
Mm,
going to parties and saying yes to people all the time and being a people pleaser was all thrown out the window. I was done with
yeah.
it. I was like, I would much rather now be at home with my dogs and the fire's burning and
Oh,
have some proper nice cooked food and not worry
yeah.
about going to the party to be seen on Instagram and photographed at this certain event.
Staying out
Because
till 6 when you don't really want to.
even
And
6 p.m. now is too much. I'm like, I want to
yeah.
get home before it gets dark.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? But yeah, it's like everything mattered too much apart from your own mental health and
Yeah,
your own sanity, in
we
them
ignore
days.
that always. I don't know why. It's always the last thing to worry about. Like, oh, I'll look at my mental health another day, even though it's
Oh,
crippling me today and I can't get up because of anxiety. Oh, I'll look at that another day.
I used to say sleep when you're dead, and now I love to sleep. I
I know,
love
it's
to get
like
to bed. I love to have 9 hours if possible and have a
it's the dream.
siesta.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
must be
I
nice to be
used
in Spain as well, because the way of life there, I've been there a few times, and I've never gone to like I've done Barcelona, but I'd always go to like Alicante and a lot more of the quieter areas. And
mm,
I used to love the pace of life. It just there was just no arrogance, no kind of rush. It just seemed that everyone was just a bit more like, let's take a step back, let's just slow it down a bit.
yeah,
Loved it.
totally. I found, I mean, I've been here 20 years now, and I came from London, and for me, Madrid was like a village. I mean, it's changed a lot now. It's a lot busier, and also I'm older, so it's different. But I really, it really struck me the feeling that here people work to live,
Yeah,
and in London I felt people lived to work. It was
exactly that.
that tension, that stress. And here, even though there was the crisis, they called it in them days, it was, once they got the euro over here, it really affected them. But people always had a euro in them days. It was just a euro for a canya, and people always had a euro to go out and meet their friends and have a drink. And it wasn't like let's go out and have a drink and
No,
get wasted. It was let's go out, have one beer. You get your tapas as well. It's a lot more civilized, and people, I mean, the end result is quite often the same, but it's not that mentality that, rah, it's just more relaxed about being together. The sun has a lot to do with it, to be
yeah,
honest.
I was going to say, right now I'm looking out the window and the snow's here. It's icy, it's
No.
cold. It's not great.
Oh, it's a bright blue sky here.
What a
I've got no
contrast.
windows in my flat, but I have
Wow.
a tiny little bit of the door that I can see. And it's, yeah, bright blue sky. I'm going to go out for a walk in a minute.
I do not blame you. My final question that I ask all guests that come on, it's quite an interesting one, and I think as a songwriter and a poet, it'll be one that you find quite challenging because what I do on this podcast to make it as original as I can,
Mhm.
every guest that comes on gets to choose the last piece of music that's played. So as I've edited all of our interview today and put it out there for the world to listen to, a piece of music can be played. Now, it doesn't have to be one of your own. It can be a song that you love or means a lot to you. And maybe after today's kind of trip down memory lane, something might come back to you that we didn't even think about. But is there a song that, when I ask the question, comes to your heart and soul above any other that you would love to be played after our interview today?
Um, the thing that came to mind straight away was "Lovely Day" by Bill Withers, but I'd like to request if I can. Sorry, if that's two. I'd like to request "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye because
Oh, wow.
I think the world is in a terrible mess. I mean, people always say this, but uh, it's a beautiful song. The lyrics are so profound and so deep and so true today as they were then. Um, and I love all that old stuff. I mean, I love Bill Withers, I love Marvin Gaye, but I think, yeah, what's going on? I
It's
think we're
such a
blessed because we're
such a
artists.
timeless song as well. Like you can listen to it now and it could sound like it was recorded yesterday. I never understand or can get my head around how the production sounds so crisp back then.
It's incredible, yeah, yeah.
It
It's
stood the test of time.
yeah, and it's probably the definition of a great tune. I mean, we complain about modern music. Well, I do that, and you think, wow, all this trap and all this crap, basically. And you
Yeah.
think, right, it's now. It's not going to last the test of time. But that's probably what our parents and grandparents said
I get
about.
it. Yeah, they'll be
I
listening
was
to
just
us when
listening
we're.
to Salt and Pepper just now and
Well,
thinking,
do you know I had on
wow,
the
that
podcast
stood the
two
test
weeks?
of
Do you
time.
know I had on the podcast this week?
No.
This will take you back. Ace of Base.
Oh, oh, once lived in
Exactly.
well, all of them.
I only had one of them because they all hate each other now and they don't get
Oh,
on. But it was just an interesting story, and I forgot that that album sold 45 million copies and is one of the biggest selling debut albums of all time. And I forgot completely about just how big they were, and it was a proper trip down memory lane. I was like, oh my god! So I was like, it was quite a wonderful moment.
I bet.
But you don't hear about them anymore.
You don't. Although occasionally I see these parties, the 90s parties that they keep doing.
Oh
And
right,
it's
yeah.
someone from Ace of Base who goes,
Every
obviously
bloody
that's
time.
why, because they've all fallen out.
It's been lovely to have you on today, and
Oh, it's
I
been
really
lovely
do
to talk
appreciate
to
it.
you.
And I'll do all the usual and tag you all in on all the socials and put it
Please
on.
do, yeah.
Even though we've said about how it can break us that we look at these numbers, I'll put it on Facebook, Twitter,
Let's
Instagram,
get the followers. Come
TikTok.
on.
everything for you. And the moment you get over here in the new year, let's meet up for a drink, and I'll come and say
Yeah, it'd be
hello
lovely
and
to meet you in
a proper
person.
catch up. That'd be amazing.
Oh, well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Rock and roll.
So there's my interview with me and AmyJo Doherty. How great is she? Down to earth, lovely, humble, and I just really felt this warmth from the moment we started talking, and I can't wait for you guys to go and listen to the album now and hopefully go and check out some of the UK dates. It's not often that she plays in the UK, so snap up a ticket, go and see her, and you'll not be disappointed. Now, if you've enjoyed today's interview, all I ask as always is to share it. It costs you guys absolutely nothing to do and is literally the click of a couple of buttons. So if you can take the time to share the episode, it really does mean the world. You can do this on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all those sort of channels, and each and every time you do it, it might just find that new person that discovers Mark and me and suddenly is now a listener for life, and that is something that money can't buy. So that's why I ask on every episode for you guys to carry on doing this. Also, I have a Patreon account. The reason I can keep this podcast on sites and host it and go out there and do interviews all across the country for everyone at home is because of Patreon. So if you can go on there, there's a link on markandme.com. You can sign up, you get exclusive episodes, stickers, a welcome pack, a very limited edition badge, and everything else that I can give you to say thank you for supporting Mark and Me on Patreon. I want to give a shout out to the two sponsors of Mark and Me. Firstly, Vice Press. If you're in the market for anything to do with some incredible collectibles, art prints, posters, go on vicepress.com, go and collect yourself something beautiful, and remember to use the code MarkandMe10 for 10% off your first order. And not only that, I have Richer Sounds who have supported me for a couple of years, and I'm so grateful to those guys. If you want to go and buy a brand new record player to listen to people like AmyJo Doh, or if you want to go and buy some headphones or buy a brand new TV, visit richersounds.com or visit any of their high street stores. They really are the best guys in town, and I'm so grateful for the sponsorship. Right, I'll be back in only a few days' time with another brand new episode of Mark and Me. So until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Right now. Right on. Right on. Mother, everybody thinks we're at home. Oh, but who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. Oh, you know we've got some understanding here today. Pick it loud and pick it sound. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Right on, right on. Right on. Right on. Right.